I don't want.
You're unmuted.
And this is our turn to talk, not dialogue between us.
Actually, when you're giving your report to them, you're giving it to the trustees.
Got to call this meeting to order. This is the Board of Commissioners study session. We're in the Frank Walter House boardroom. Okay.
Commissioner Cunningham is absent. Janai,
Here.
Markey,
Here.
Nye. Here. Roloff.
Here.
Sauer,
Here.
Worsakki.
I'm here.
All right.
Stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody had a chance to review the agenda?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? We have meeting minutes from November 12th.
Janai moves to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion and support for the approve the meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Brings us to our first public comment. Would anybody like to come up and speak for public comment? Close public comment, and we'll move on to our HR updates. Miss Jackie?
Miss Jackie. Good afternoon. So the biggest thing I really wanted to point out on the HR update is we've had a lot of new employees and a lot of job vacancies. The biggest things are the internal employees that got moved to new positions. So Kyle Maurer is our new maintenance manager and Michael Drager is our new IT support specialist. And they have been doing great in those roles. Kyle, this is only his second day fully in that position. He's still doing a little bit with the ACO until we can fill that position. We're hoping to have someone in there by January. And then other than that, it's just a lot of year-end stuff. And starting in January, we'll be doing the policy reviews. Is there any questions?
Kyle was MCO certified, right?
Qualified,
Certified to
I-
carry, yes. So
I don't.
is that a
think
requirement of
he
the
was.
animal control?
No.
He wasn't certified? Okay. Is there law enforcement qualifications, criteria that are required for the animal control officer?
Oh, I should have brought the job description with me.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's like
It's not a
coded.
law enforcement.
It's not
Yeah.
law enforcement, right?
It, yeah, it doesn't have to be a police officer per se, no.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, code enforcement, like almost like. He did assist the sheriff's office sometimes, when called upon, but that's not a requirement of the job by any means.
We don't have internal interest for that position?
Nope,
No,
She asked with somebody in mind?
I asked and I was told absolutely not.
Yep.
Yes.
yep.
But since we're on that subject though, they don't necessarily are authorized to carry a firearm then either, are they? You have to make that decision at each hire, right?
Right.
So I do have a couple of questions also.
Okay.
Staying on that subject, if Kyle's playing a dual role, is he being compensated for being able to covering animal control also? Because he'd be called in after hours, wouldn't he?
We are paying him his new rate for the maintenance manager, and the sheriff's office was kind enough to fill in for the ACO role. If it's during normal working hours, the anticipation is that Kyle, if available, will be able to work in between those two positions. But outside of office hour or outside of offer hours that people are instructed to call dispatch if they're having any animal control issues.
So he's not on call.
No, well, in a maintenance capacity, yes,
Yeah.
but not in the ACO position.
And I want to put this out there, and maybe this isn't the place for the discussion, but I've been thinking about, you get people coming through your office when you talk about sensitive subjects.
Mhm.
Is the space that you occupy, does that offer you the privacy necessary to have employees secure in the fact that their conversations are private? Or is that an awkward space?
I think it really depends if an employee does want privacy where they don't want anyone know that we're communicating. I could arrange that separately, so they wouldn't even have to walk into the office. I think oftentimes if an employee walks into the office and especially walks right into HR, there could be the thought of like, are they talking about me? Or, there could be a narrative behind that. But I know that Katie and I have been talking, and then I've also talked to the sheriff's office at the potential of being able to maybe move around a little bit more and being more available. So rather than having employees having to come to me, I want the opportunity to go to employees and be where they are. Because oftentimes I found that if I'm just physically present, oftentimes someone will be like, oh, hey, I've been meaning to ask you a question, or hey, I wanted to talk to you about this. And so I think just physically being present in different locations provides a new opportunity.
Okay,
Can I speak to that real quickly?
please.
I do think that Jackie's location should be different. I have been, I put myself in the role of somebody who wanted to see her just when I visited, and it's not private. It's not private where she's at. And I do think that out of a lot of employees here, you have the most sensitive conversations, and I would like you to be in a more neutral, private place. Where people can feel free to have conversations with you and not worry if
Yeah.
voices are carrying or can be overheard. And so I do think exploring that would be a good thing. And that's just my opinion.
Well, and I would love the opportunity to have that sounds like a great plan. I mean, I would be willing to do that. And I think it's important to have that privacy option for those employees as well.
I mean,
But
the challenge is the administrator's
Yeah.
challenge. You got 3 people in
Yeah,
the office and you're offering flex time, and it's logistically, it's gonna be hard to manage.
Well, even if you rotated and had some place where you spent Wednesdays and Fridays, I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a solution where folks could know, this can be a private conversation with Jackie. And I know you're willing to meet people, but,
Right.
we're a big campus
Yeah.
and you fill big shoes. So
I think we can find a place at Station 3 for you.
No. So, and Jackie does meet in other locations. So if it's, a matter of appearances, she will go meet a person in a private conference room in another location. So that is happening
I've done that too.
when it's very sensitive and such. So
Yeah.
it's not a matter, and she has shades that she's closed. And so there is shades on that window.
Yeah.
But her needing a window to her office was very important, was why her space was opened up specifically.
I
do
know
love
that
the
we
flex.
shouldn't be getting into solutions here, but
Yeah.
there's even ways to soundproof these offices.
Oh, yeah, I hear Karen Korolenko's conversations all day, every day. So does she.
So that means they hear yours.
Mhm.
What?
I said, that means they hear yours.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just something to be considered.
Yeah.
The trouble is when they put the walls in, they didn't go all the way to the ceiling. So if you move the ceiling tiles, you can look over onto the Karen behind us.
I'm sure someone smarter than I am can figure that out.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me, I was in a conversation in HR, we dedicated an HR department so that we could improve employee morale and deliver human resources at a different level. But if we don't have the right environment for it, it kind of defeats it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I haven't had too many issues with the privacy aspect. Oftentimes, if I ever worry about that, like Katie stated, I do go to them, or I'm willing to talk outside of normal business hours. Someone's lunch break, I could meet them somewhere. I haven't done that yet, but I'd be willing to do that too. So the advantage of my position is I do have the flexibility to be able to move around a little bit more than maybe most departments or most people. Any other questions? Seth?
Want to thank you for all the help.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
in it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It was a good learning experience for me as well. Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. We're gonna move on now for topics for continued discussion. The first one is regarding the emergency operations plans. Something we love, very near to our, and dear to our heart.
We're gonna start on page 1, right?
For Commissioner Rosecki, he'd like us to start at page 1.
Rhonda read it. Have her recite it.
This is more of a visual effect, but this is the current plan. Under, so the 300 pages that I provided you are about adequate. Again, Benzie County being smaller than other counties. We have less fillers, but it is a thing. So this project has taken me and my planning teams, the planning teams,
It's hers.
a good 2 or 3 years. And so I'm gonna try to do it really fast because clearly the audience is here for a different purpose, not my plan. Right? You're here for my plan?
Some of these were here for.
Alright. And I probably just try to stick to my script, so I'll talk fast, but pretty much, the plan was provided to you. It's 300 some odd pages. My hope is that you had some questions and I could answer them and we really wouldn't have to do it Evan's way, which is page by page by page by page, but. That being said, the plan is broken up into like 3 different parts. There's the base plan. That's all the talking words of the first few hundred pages. And then it gets broken down into annexes. And I do want to explain that those annexes have already been run, that's probably not the proper plural, but run by subject matter experts during the local planning team process. The sheriff has reviewed and the chief of police have reviewed the public safety. The fire officials have reviewed the fire, blah, 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 equalization and that kind of, so I have reached out to that. And that's why it's a multi-year process. So it's like, is this check sheet still apply to Benzie County, still apply to your role, whatever. So I really, unless you find a typo or something, or have a question, I wouldn't focus on exactly going, oh my gosh, do they have all the right check boxes? Because again, we've tried to do that part. So again, it's mostly the base plan. I like to know where I'm coming from, I guess. So I would assume other people might like to know where they're coming from. And so that's why I gave you that. I call it a 2-pager, but that's only because I cut and pasted from Public Act 390, some things, but, in a nutshell, just for, references. So somewhere along the way, like in 1950s, they had a civil defense, procedure. We've grown out of that to this emergency management feature. So in 1976, Public Act 390 was created. And then you can clearly see the progression. I bet you all counties in 1977 probably had to come up with a resolution saying that this is what we're going to do. The state said you will do this, and the counties had to react with, okay, we're going to do this. So I handed it out at the beginning. Because there is no electronic version. There was a resolution passed in Benzie County in 1977. Pretty much outlining the position of, back then they called it the Emergency Services Office. My guess is since then and whenever I took root, emergency management became more of the right words because FEMA was designated in 1978, so after this. So my guess is the focus went towards Homeland Security Emergency Management and less confusing with emergency service, like emergency medical services. But technically, the resolution says that my office is the Emergency Services Office. Anyway, the 2-pager and the resolution are just for you to actually read and go, oh, hey, that's why Becky does what she does. And it's not just what she tells us she does. So there's actually statute and resolution that says she shall. So that being said, that's really just for you to reference in the future. I'm going to go over the 2-pager that I kind of talked to you about. I I gave you excerpts of 390. My job is based on pretty much Public Act 390 and all of the rules and the federal rules that say you shall do this. That's why I have all those spreadsheets that I have to fill out, because everything ends up being dictated by money. You don't get money unless Becky does this. It's a lot of what those boxes are. That's why I have that work plan at the very beginning of the fiscal year that says I shall do this, and then I do it. And then my job description is based on that. And everything revolves around, in Michigan, Public Act 390. Again, Benzie County Resolution created the office in 1977. It identifies the coordinator. Section 602 of your resolution identifies the coordinator as responsible for the development of plans for the immediate use of all facilities, equipment, manpower, and blah, 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 in Benzie County. So pretty much that's saying, why do we have to have a plan? Because FEMA says we have to plan, Michigan says we have to plan, and we made a resolution that said Becky will do the plan in this case, or whoever is, in my role, because somebody has to do the plan. It kind of reads that Becky can do the plan, but our current dynamic that I've taken over from the previous people who have done this position is I incorporate the local planning team, which has a bunch of stakeholders that are relevant to the conversation, those subject matter experts, along with the local emergency planning committee, which has to do most with hazard materials, but I combine those people. And then I reach out to the offices, like I had to reach out to our materials management team to talk about certain portions of that part of our plan and things like that. So it's not just me cutting and pasting a plan and saying, here's the plan, I said it shall be. I try to be very diligent in making sure we're reaching out to the right resources and not just cutting and pasting all the time. So Benzie County does use a whole county. We are limited in our resources, but we do use that whole county. And I kind of explained to you the LPT and the LEPC. Section 10 gives the county pretty much its permissions to do this, and section 390, or sorry, in Act 390. And like I said, then we just go on to the resolution. So everybody kind of gets maybe where I'm coming from, is why the plan and why is it written a certain way, is because in the rules of plan writing for FEMA and Michigan, it says, these are the things that must be in the plan. I did use a template designed by the state, and I've added to it and changed things around to make it sound more human than the template. But the template I followed to make sure that I met all the obligations of the plan. And that is actually another document that says what those things are. Does anybody have any questions regarding at least the base portion of this plan for those who actually read the first 33 pages? Yes.
I've read it. I mean, only because you made me.
Yes, I do make, again, and it takes a while. So I guess I did want to speak. I did ask for some outreach to the communities. It would be very difficult for me. You saw how difficult it was with the hazard mitigation plan to take this around to every community and say, how do you feel? Do you like this? Do you not? It's really nowhere in our resolution, nowhere in the state Public Act does it say. I mean, it says we need to be inclusive, and I try to be inclusive, but I don't know that I have, if you want me to, I will, but the time to go around and ask them, do you want to adopt this plan or whatever? It's pretty much once the county adopts the plan, we're the people making some of the decisions that impact that. I've been very welcoming to provide this to those communities that say there is a plan and this is what it is. I don't know that it's ever been any other procedure in previous years. But when I do come back in January after our new commissioner comes on board, it's been a while since you all have had a emergency management update, I guess, from not necessarily my office, but just from the state. What are the role is of emergency management? Why do I go directly to the board chair when it comes to emergency management and things like that? We'll have one of those types of presentations for you. And I would like to include invites to your other communities so they understand it a little bit as well, trying to be all inclusive. But I also have to get it done. So it would take forever. I just said, how do you feel?
Rebecca, just a comment on getting input. I think the more input you can get, of course, the more buy-in you have. But, you know, we're a representative government. They elect us to make decisions on their behalf. And sometimes it's just not practical. You know, I know that I got some pushback regarding that plan that you needed.
Yeah, the hazard
Fine,
mitigation
you know.
plan, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's available for people who are interested. Most people don't seem interested. Most people are not interested until how many people are on here? Shit hits the fan. And then they're like, where's your plan and what does it say and why does it say that? And it's like kind of I had the same reflect for the DNR. We cut a bunch of trees down. Why did you cut a bunch of trees down? Well, 2 years prior, we had a meeting and a plan that allowed the public to have input on why this is happening. But nobody realizes it until the trees are cut and it's devastating. So
you know,
same kind of concept.
the parallel is this. When I ask you what time it is, I don't want you to tell me how to build the watch. All right? Here the big question should be, how does it affect me? And that's really what people want to know.
Yeah. This plan in general is just know it exists. If there's a big deal that impacts Benzie County, even smaller, like we referenced it a little bit when we had some cyber incident, concerns. There's policy and procedure that has to do with other things. This isn't telling the sheriff how he will act. This is saying we've gone beyond the scope of a 30 pile up crash that you guys know how to handle. And now there will be impacts that are beyond community resources. What do we do? And this is where we go. Becky needs to call in those people that she calls in. Those are the Emergency Operations Center type call list that says, y'all need to come in here and we need to have some conversations. We did that with COVID a little bit. You know, people wanted us to close down the streets and not let people come into the community. We also had a big winter snowstorm. We can close streets if we have to, if it becomes a danger or hazard. Those are the conversations that you have on a bigger level and not just one person, because we're actually using a plan why we made those decisions. So again, any typos, any things, why does it say this? Again, the annexes, I could deliberate all the time, but the Department of Health and Human Services have saw their persons. You'll see who's in charge of all of those annexes. Those people have been.
When you say inclusive, Road Commission, Red Cross, Racy's, who are the volunteers?
Sir,
I mean, we're talking a lot of organizations were involved in doing. And so, I mean, any type of, all of our Memorial Hospitals included. Benzie Bus was too, weren't they?
Benzie Bus gets
Yep.
copies of this and yep. So
And
we
so-
try to take not only just the public entities, but those, I mean, Benzie Bus is kind of a mix, but a representation of what it is that will have impacts when it comes down to bad things happening. And again, we're talking about the floods and the tornadoes and those bad things that go beyond the scope of just everyday react.
I don't have any questions, like I said, because I help.
From the county commission's perspective, really, it's the chair that is involved in this. Is that correct?
Correct. The law states that the county chair is who declares an emergency if you have one. And that only lasts, just like when the governor declared it, it only lasts a certain while before you guys have to convene and make some other strong decisions, whether it be like, how are we going to fund this? What are we going to do with it? What is the problem? How many people are displaced? That type of thing. But yes, somebody has to make that decision sooner than later, and we can't go, okay, we got to call a special meeting. We have to have all the ducks in a row and do all this stuff. No, sometimes decisions have to be made now. And he can make decisions to a certain level, but then when it comes beyond that scope, then we have to go farther. So the chair is designated by the state as the person who makes that. If it's not him, it's the line of succession. That's why we have a list of the line of succession in here. what goes down. And then each department also has a line of succession that says if the sheriff isn't here, the undersheriff makes the decision. If the undersheriff isn't here either, because they were both caught in the tornado, then the next guy is, and that's who that is in this plan. So. So I guess what I'm looking for then is, this was kind of the informational, give me if you saw a typo or what does this mean, Becky? Commissioner Cunningham sent me a couple of questions and I answered those for her. It was really just, she got her questions answered if she would just would have read farther. It wasn't anything for the whole group. What do we do? Between now and probably January, then you'll have a new chair because the chair has to sign off on this thing per the state. Maybe you won't have a new chair, but you'll have a designated chair. Katie and I'll keep researching, come up with a resolution, I think would probably be the best way that says we resolve that. Or, that we aren't supposed to make the plan, we have made the plan is to be signed and, we'll do the whole whereas and give you a one pager that you guys can adopt in January. So between now and January, if you get the chance to read the other 100 and some odd pages, after page 33.
Light reading.
Let me know. Again, I can answer the questions. A lot of it is templated, a lot of it is past experience, all the check sheets. The reason we have check sheets, which makes it a little bulkier, is because that's what the local planning team said would be easiest for them. You're gonna call me in here, Becky, because there's the emergency and I gotta think about all the things that I got going on and you want me to do a task. I prefer to have a check sheet. And then it goes down from there. Is the road commission the best person to have a water and sewer portion of the check sheet? No, but we can't always have everybody in the room at the same time. That person is tasked with maybe getting a hold of Benzonia or Beulah if there's water, and just checking that box that says, I may not be doing this, but I'm gonna follow up to make sure somebody's doing it and report back type of thing. So we try to limit how many people are in that room because room isn't that big. But we try to get all the tasks done.
From a macro level, for me, it's if we think we're in an emergency situation and there's a reason for me to have questions, who do I call?
Yeah, me.
Exactly. That's really what I need to know.
Yep. And then again, this tells us that we will tell the public, there's a public information officer. There are just things that you don't have to think about. We've already thought about them that says, when shit hits the fan, we're going to do this, 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 and this.
Sure.
For the public to know from this level and this level, not only operations, but informative and things like that. So, and if it isn't on there, it'll come up when it happens.
So I summarized the whole program, whole 180 pages for you.
Yep.
All Rebecca.
Yep, pretty much. This paper says, in this case, Rebecca or whoever it's that you are tasked with it. You're tasked with making my job available. I'm tasked with getting this done and presenting it to you. And we don't like to hear, just trust, it's in the plan, just trust me. You don't have to read it, just trust me. That apparently flares people. But I have to present it so y'all can see it. So, but trust me, I tried to make sure it was on the plan.
No, what flares people is go ahead and pass it and then read it later. That's
Yeah,
what
so
really
pretty
gets-
much approve this plan, please, and read it later. No, I don't want to do that to you. That's why I kind of gave you the scope as to why we make the plan, but.
You got a month and 4 days.
So we gotta implement it to find out what's in it.
No, I've tried to make it available. You're free to make this available. The reason I put the FOIA disclosure on the front is because, the address and there's certain things that are plans that people prepare for. And it's like, if bad things happen, we're going to do this. If bad people see those plans, sometimes they go, well, I'm just going to end around and get to them ahead of time and block this or block that. If that was really the intention, we hope that's not the intention, but we try to safeguard against it for other things, especially with cyber and all that other stuff. So if we know that you're going to do this next, guess what we're going to do first? So. Again, so between now and next meeting, when your operational meeting or the meeting after, we'll say, hey, remember that plan? If nobody has any questions, here's a resolution and just bing, bang, boom through that part.
Everyone good? Thank you.
Page
Rebecca.
2, no, I'm just kidding.
Next.
Thanks, Bill.
Sorry, guys, thanks for waiting. I know y'all wanted to pay.
She was carrying that to ask for a raise. Just saying.
Homework for today.
All right, now we're on to discussion regarding department heads and elected official wages.
So this morning I handed out two 11 by 17 pages to you. So during budgeting, there were various individuals who brought up the potential of adjustments in their wage. There was also positions that through that conversation led you to see that maybe there's some other wages to be considered, but nothing was asked for. And so today we're bringing back the conversation. The page that has some yellow and blue on it, those are your elected officials and their direct report, so they're direct appointments. And then the one with no color coding are all your appointed department heads. So that's how that's broken out. You will see, which one do you want to start with? I should ask.
Pardon?
Which one do you want to start with?
Okay.
Okay. So we'll start with the yellow and blue, the elected officials. Because during budgeting, there were specific asks made of 5 positions. The clerk, the chief deputy clerk, the chief deputy treasurer, register of deeds, and chief deputy register of deeds. Those positions were specifically brought up during budgeting and asked for adjustments. And then since then, there's been conversation about the magistrate, district court administrator, and probate registrar as well, because those are positions that have not been considered as part of any sort of wage conversation. So those are added to that list. And then on the appointed officials, the other page, the one specifically that was brought up during budgeting was central dispatch director. And then the others weren't really brought up, but this is your opportunity to bring them up. If I missed one, I'm sorry. So I tried to provide you all the information at the top, and then towards the lower of the page, where it shows Benzie, highest, medium, and lowest wages of everybody listed. And then on the color coded one to the far right, you can see what the request was during budgeting for those specific 5 positions. If you look at the comparable list of highest, medium, and lowest wages, you will see that the clerk is below median, the chief deputy clerk is above median, the treasurer is above median, the chief deputy treasurer is above median, the register of deeds is above median, the chief register is also above, the prosecutor is above median, the chief assistant prosecutor is above median, the sheriff is below median, the undersheriff is below median, the magistrate is below, but I would like to add to that conversation, the district court administrator is below, and the probate registrar, we combine that position, so there's not a great comparable there. The magistrate, I would like to call the attention, that's recent information that we received, and courts are different in the grand scheme of it. Everybody does it a little differently. And so when I reached out to the other counties, some pay the magistrates quite a high salary, some don't, some contract with the position. The Clare magistrate, it is the highest wage, which really throws off the average, but that magistrate covers circuit court, district probate court, front of the court, and is also the court administrator. So it would make sense that that wage is the highest because they're also a referee. So it carries a lot of hat. So that does throw off that median a little bit.
And
So
what that is, if that's thrown out.
let me pull my spreadsheet back up. My computer died.
That's 98,000.
if I were to throw out Claire, which really is the true outlier in this, that brings the average down to 69 from 70, almost 74.
So medium average is,
Yeah, that's if you throw out Claire, which really is a true outlier, being that it's the almost the whole kit and caboodle in one. So I don't have recommendations for you. I wanted to present this information and allow you to discuss and draw your own conclusions on what you believe is the right direction to go in. You have the requests made by the elected officials during budgeting season, as well as the what was talked about. So I guess questions, who wants to start the conversation? What are you thinking?
Well, the first question has to be, what will does our budget even support doing anything?
You did earmark funding within contingency specifically for this conversation.
Okay, so with limits, we could address some of this.
Yes,
And when would the effective date be?
that's up to you. It could be retro to 10/1, it could be January 1, that's your decision as a
Can
board.
you retro and elected officials? Hey,
I don't know why you couldn't. You can only increase, you can't decrease during their term.
this has
Oh.
come up before in the 8 years that I've been here, and I thought we were told that you could not retro an elected officials' pay.
I'd have to look that. So you guys talk and I'll look.
it'd be better though to make them effective at the first of the year.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the timing.
I don't like the idea of going too far back, even though it'll be some disturbance.
And can someone refresh my memory as to why we're dealing with this now rather than at budget time? I don't remember why.
You wanted more information, you wanted more time to consider everybody. There was kind of a lot of reasons as to why you didn't consider it at the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
because like Tammy gave us a memo and I've been carrying it around and a couple of other ones Corey, I think, did. I couldn't remember why I was even carrying it around anymore, to tell you the truth, but. So it was just that we were waiting for management to bring us some more comprehensive information.
Yeah, and there was a timing and all of that based on election results and such.
Okay,
My biggest concern has been the sheriff and the undersheriff. By the looks of it, should quite a concern to all of them. I like the idea of shooting for that median. The sheriff and the undersheriff, God bless them, they never bring it up. So, I'm leaning that way on those two for sure.
well, we did give them a bump.
Yeah, in
On the
20,
sheet, you didn't give them a heck of a bump.
Well, actually, they were so poorly paid, quite frankly,
Right.
that even giving them a bump obviously didn't get them very far. But what I'm trying to stress, Gary, is that I know in the last 2 years, we did address something
We
that was
did.
beyond the regular percentage.
I believe it was in 2022, there was a pretty hefty bump, but you have to realize that we live in this world of, it's hard to be a police officer, and there's nobody that wants to do it.
Right.
And so while we did give a nice bump at one point, you also have everybody around us in Michigan who has dramatically increased wages for law enforcement officers because of the world we live in. So we had bumped to be towards the top, and then it's been 2 years and counties and cities have given dramatic increases. And so now we're falling behind once again. And that's just kind of the cards we were dealt.
What's the status of overtime in that department? It needed to be addressed at one point. Has that taken place?
Are you talking about the jail, right? Because the sheriff's deputies really don't have like the road deputies don't have a ton of overtime. They're in an interesting sticky situation up there with some staff that are out. I will say though that there have been decreases in overtime, and actually 2 pay periods ago, I think it was, there was 0 overtime. Yes,
Right.
and I should say 0 unscheduled overtime. There was no. Yeah, there may have been scheduled overtime, but 0 unscheduled overtime.
Is your question coming from a perspective of how much additional time do these salaried people have to put in because of
I'm
overtime?
just trying to think of the budget as a whole.
Because if you're salary, you don't get paid anything different, right?
Right, but certain departments, when they're dealing with overtime, they have to take from somewhere. I'm thinking of the budget overall. In areas that had
Oh,
issues.
I got you. Okay.
I will say there have been improvements made, yes.
Katie, you have this in a spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Put that to me when you get a chance.
Uh-huh.
Here.
So philosophically, our position's been with all county employees that we wanted to be competitive, however we want to define that. As a private employer in the past, I always found myself when I was in smaller organizations, that I was simply taking what I call A players and trading them for somebody else. So that was always a risk. Even though we don't compare ourselves to Grand Traverse County, we're competing against Grand Traverse County for the talent. If there were a way to do this, I think that we ought to live by the standard we set for ourselves and try to get to everybody to a median wage. The question is would the budget support it?
This year, yes. Next year, probably. The year after that, no.
So we boxed ourselves in just within a couple of years' time by whatever decision we make today.
Well, if you leave status quo today, then we're good for a couple of more years. But depending on the extent of increases, you could box us in a couple of years. We do have Headley that will be out on the table in 2026, which will have to be considered as well. Well, I say Headley as in the general operating millage.
We also have to consider. We'll box ourselves in with raises that we've already given out
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And I said,
Right.
Before we implemented those, I've said time and again, we're fine this year, we're fine next year. And at that time, we're fine the year after, and then we're getting tight. Well, now I'm taking a year off that. And so I've had the same response every time is we're all right this year. Next year's going to be tight. The year after that, I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Is that because you're expecting a decrease in revenue?
Yeah. I am, in my mind, I am counting on the county, the community not approving Headley. And if they approve it, I'm going to get on my knees and thank all of them tremendously. But I can't count on that because it is such a beast in our community.
Okay. Is there any other revenue opportunities?
Open some more marijuana shops.
So I'm going to put this out there and the hospitality industry is going to throw darts at me all day long. But a lot of communities have introduced a county hospitality tax for the purpose of supporting public safety employees, because in our market, we triple our population. The people that are relying on that service aren't paying for it. And what this is collected through the hospitality industry doesn't have to go to a vote, by the way. I've seen it in communities as much as 6%. But what it does is it helps cure some of this problem without putting it on the back of our current taxpayers. That's why I ask, and that's just throwing it against the wall, okay?
I have a
But
real problem with targeting beds when grocery stores, gas stations, every other entity, commercial entity gets a windfall in the summertime. Why are you specifically asking the people who provide the beds to shoulder this?
Yeah, that's more than a fair question. That's why I'm cautious to say, I'm just throwing it out there that it sounds like we need to take time to explore revenue opportunity. And that's just one measure. I get the inequitability of it. I really do. I want to keep in mind though, that the property owner is collecting it from their visiting guest. They're not paying it out of pocket.
But they also aren't homesteaded on that portion, and so they pay higher taxes.
Okay,
Which is another. No, I'm gonna get picked. for this one. The VRB thing, has really complicated this issue. Cost a lot, as far as I'm concerned, for the community, especially when it comes to public safety. Dragging in more people, we have less and less housing. On and on and on. So I don't know where the happy medium there is.
And I'm not asking that we get caught up in that subject today.
Okay.
I'm looking at it from a much broader perspective. We are talking about potential decrease in revenue or revenue not keeping up with expenses. So my mindset, okay, well, then the option is how do I get other revenue without burdening my taxpayer? I don't have that answer today.
I like the idea of targeting ones that benefit versus targeting everybody. I don't know how you do it. Can't really target the grocery stores. Their margins too damn small to begin with.
Are you
Well,
sure?
Well, maybe what you and I are paying, but go check their margins on what they're making.
Again,
Here we go.
I think the option is looking for opportunities that don't bite into the profitability of current business activity. But I don't want to get lost in that today.
Okay, all right.
But what I'm hearing Katie say is, yeah, you guys can make these decisions today, but you probably have real consequences 2 years from now.
Mhm.
That gives us time to explore these options, right? Or no?
Well, it's a gamble, big gamble,
Everything's a gamble.
and more so here, I
Getting up
think.
in the morning sometimes is a gamble.
I'd like to bring something up real short, and I don't mean anybody get irritated about this, but on my agenda, we're on item B, discussion regarding department heads and elected officials' wages.
Thank you.
We kind of got off on a back road.
Fair.
Well, the back road does influence may influence our opinions on the wages. I mean, this is not stuff we're gonna be taking action today. We can't.
Correct.
So this is just information for us to digest. For us to have a discussion later.
Well, I mean, you've seen this information now already more than once. I would hope that we could have a deeper conversation so that we can start leaning towards some sort of consensus to bring an action forward.
Well, for me, kind of like Art said, we've been striving to be at least at the median for almost all of our positions. I think we should still try to strive for that, in my opinion.
I agree with that as well.
Some of these asks
Yeah, the asks
are
that
a
are,
bit different, though.
yeah, the asks that are above median, I think are non-starters.
Okay.
In my mind, just because we've set that bar there, and if you're already over median, I don't understand why the adjustment is being requested.
Yeah, I would share that also. I'm real concerned that 2 years from now during budgeting time, I'm looking at, whoops, got to cut positions, got to change. Now you got to pay towards your insurance premiums. I mean, there's consequences to this, but I don't know how far down the road you continue to kick this. I've got stuff that I've been holding on to since last February, I think.
Did we have a comment you'd like to make? Nice one.
Especially for the chief deputies, if we remember earlier this year, we did the study and all of the deputies, especially in our office, the clerk, the register's office, the clerk's office, they all got a pretty good raise. Some of them did, some of them got a little smaller. I added mine up. My girl got a raise, 2% in June. She got a 3% cost of living raise, so we're at 5%. And she's going to get another 2% raise in April. That's a 7% raise within a year's time. Whereas my chief deputy is only getting 3%. 2-3 years ago, the chief deputies came to the board, got a nice raise, got ourselves where we needed to be. And now you're lowering that back down again. And that's why I'm looking to get that extra 4% or 5% back to my chief deputy. So she stays where she's supposed to be. Because the comment in the minutes said we need to keep the chief deputies aligned wherever they were before and not let them get any smaller. Because honestly, my chief deputy does 3 times more the work than my deputy. She's in charge of banking. She's in charge of specific things that my deputy cannot touch. So I just like to keep that parallel between the two of them. Me, myself, and I'm fine. I'm good. I'm great. You know, I'd like a little bit more money too. think I'm doing more. I'm doing great for the county these days, but I just would want to keep that parallel between the deputies and the chief deputies at this point, and that's
And I
why
appreciate
we've all
you
came for that.
advocating for your staff. I do,
Yeah.
I do. But when I'm looking at a sheet that says that the median's 47.8 and the deputies are at 53.1, I understand what you're trying to accomplish,
Mhm.
but I also have this data in front of me.
And we
That's-
did not get that data in front of us until just recently. So when we requested that information and when we fought for this over 3 years ago to keep those chief deputies in that place, we didn't have these medians to look at. So
This was provided to all of you during budgeting though, and nothing has changed. I will respond and say in 2022, when you guys adjusted the chief deputies and the sheriff and the undersheriff and yourselves, you were striving to keep a 10 to 12-ish percentage between the positions. Currently, as it stands, there's still 15% between the deputy and the chief deputy is the only thing. So that's,
I don't think it's 15, but
this was emailed and printed for everybody. The only things that would have changed are the additional positions. And then if I adjusted to factor in the new wages, because some counties, I had their new wages.
Well, I've got the sheet that was handed out at budget time. It matches this one. Mine does. Well, I'm just telling you, this was handed out to me at budget time. I've been carrying it around since then, and it matches this. Other than smaller font, it matches this number here.
The only thing I did is I corrected my calculation between difference of average from the requests, because I did them backwards. So I fixed that. But as far as highest, that I haven't touched.
Yeah.
The only thing I did is make sure that the wages that show are accurate for what's today. Because before we put in like 2025, we put in the numbers of what it was going to look like, but then I factored in the true numbers.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the hard dollars. I wasn't looking at the percentages.
It's up to the board, but if you guys are going to comment, please come to the podium, otherwise nobody can hear you. And we do have quite a few people watching.
Kim Nowak, and I'm in the 85th district and probate courts. And it is a little different than anything. The only thing that I would bring to your attention when I came here in October, there were the raises that were given to different office positions on the step scale and what they had made. So not only do they get the cost of living raise or the 3% in October, they had gotten a huge, some of them, raise based on their longevity and their positions. Now, probate and district are different because we're one of the only courts in Michigan that are combined. And so we are all doing different positions and different jobs, and it's hard to compare them to other counties. That's true. And that's why you do see probate register and district court magistrate and all that and different. However, when I came in October, I did indicate that based on the step scale, based on the percentage that the commissioners give us at the fiscal year and their longevity of time, we've got a position that's making 1% more than what a supervisor makes. So right now in our court, the department head, which would probably be me and the magistrate or court administrator, we're only like 2% different. And the one position that's under us are subordinates. I have a hard time saying that because I don't see them as that, but in that position, they are making 1% more than we are right now. So I just would like you to take that into consideration too. Thank you.
Kim, can I get you to step back up there?
So I'm not sure that's completely accurate.
Okay.
So
Right here.
the position that you're referring to is making 57.3. And the position that's, I know you're talking about magistrate is at 59.7.
Okay.
And then court administrator is at 62.6. So, it is very close, but I think it's just opposite of the percentage you
Okay.
said is all.
That's what I just had. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't have the 3% in there.
Yeah.
In October, because this again was before that was given, I believe.
Yeah, it wasn't a set in stone.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So Kim, this question isn't to be combative. I'm genuinely interested in your thoughts, okay?
Okay.
Based on what I'm being told from those people that do the financial analysis, that in 2 years' time, we have no clear path on how to continue supporting this. Give me some suggestions on what you would do, knowing that the information suggests that 2 years from now, you've got real problems.
I think you're gonna have real problems. There's no question about it. Because what are you gonna do with the stepstone that you have in place already and you've approved on for all those other employees that they know come their anniversary, they're supposed to get this amount of money. And come the fiscal year, whether you as a board approve it or not, that 3%. That's already set in stone for those people that have already been approved, those salaries. They know they're gonna get this and this year, they go up this step and then this increase in the stage. And they're gonna increase each year, whether they get the 3% or not, on this step level, it's a guaranteed.
Okay.
For us, it's not a guarantee. This is
Right.
where we're at. I don't know where, I don't have an answer for that, but again, is it fair that, yeah, you're in a hard spot. Is it fair for an employee that's under us to make more than us? No, it's not. Are you gonna come up with the money? We're gonna have to Headley, again, it could be a real killer. Yeah, I don't have a clear answer for that because you gotta look at the revenue. You gotta see what you have ahead of you. And again, at budget time, that's what we're asked to do too. How much money are you gonna incur for your expenses? How much money are you gonna revenue? Probate is not a money maker. We're not a money maker. I see it as more of a assistance. We all are. District Court has the money coming in, but is that, again, that split, the state to county. You're not guaranteed how much funds are gonna come in each time. You know, that's all I have. I don't know, but I don't know if they, yeah, like she said, open up a marijuana shop. I know everybody's listening, but you get revenues from that, you know, again, your increases, I completely agree with your increases this morning. I think it's fair. Yes, you're voted to be in this position. You wanted to be in this position, but you should be compensated for that. You should be able to have your per diem. You should be able, we appreciate you being our faces. As a township resident, I appreciate my township commissioner. You know, they're speaking for us, as you said earlier, Mr. Janat. When it comes down to it, you're speaking for your township and doing what you can and the community, and you're here today doing it for the county. Again, you got to think of your employees too, we got a great group. We really do. You're going to see a lot of changes and technology. Don't even get me started with that. You know, they're asking us to do more and more and more in the state level. And you just have to do that more and more. You can't say no, you got to do it. You got to keep up with the statutes. You got to keep up with the laws. And we're holding our own and we're doing it. So I have any other questions? I'm up here. I mean, I'm just being sincere and honest and what I believe, and I've been here a very long time and I've seen it where we've gone years without salary increases, you know, a few years. And was that fair? No, it wasn't. But yet we're getting our medical, we're getting our health insurance. I'm one of the fortunate ones that does have longevity. But they don't have that anymore. I'm one of the fortunate ones that does have the better retirement plan, but they knocked that down a little bit too. So you guys are in the hot seat.
Let me ask you, I think the same question Art asked, but a little different. Knowing that the wages have already been set, regardless of what we do with yours, it's apparent that we might be in a bind in a couple of years. Is there things that your organization could do to help cut costs, to help alleviate the burden of the salaries that were being paid?
It is possible, you
And it-
know.
You don't
there's-
have to have the answer today, I
Yeah.
guess. It's
It's-
something you may want to think
yeah.
about.
Well, and you know, you're mandated to have certain things, okay? You got to have the software programs to keep up with what you have here. They're going to have us going to electronic filing. We're going to have new systems for that. That's going to be a cost. Now, hopefully the state comes in for that. You know, if they're mandated it, you hope they come in, but that we've seen in the past, that doesn't always happen. They tell us you have to do it, and the county is going to have to come up with the money to do that. But you know, we try to operate by the skin of our teeth already. We had a lot this year that our office, you know, and I can't speak for the other offices, but our courts gave a lot of money back, I think, this year because we didn't have to have a lot of push towards that. So there could be, but I don't know. It depends on what the state
I mean,
wants to do too on the court side.
That might be the ask in 2 years from us, right? 2 years from now, we might be saying, hey, every department at every organization, we need to really look at what do we really need? What can we do
Yep.
without?
Well, I know in the years past too, they've come up with what's mandated with the county, because we've been in the red tape a lot of times. And it's like, what's your mandated services? We may have to do away with, unfortunately, MSU. It's a great program and stuff, but is it mandated? Road patrol, is it mandated? You don't want to see them leave either. You know, it's the functionality of the county. This is what keeps us going. This is the administration. And we have to run it. And this is what we're doing. So,
Haven't got to that point yet,
yeah, I know.
but that's something to think about. And the other thing to me is we're still carrying a pretty healthy fund balance. Over 20-some%, correct? 25, 27.
This is one of the better years I have ever seen. I mean, we have seen it really, really bad in years. Like I said, there was years we didn't, not even at fiscal year. So I'm just saying, thanks to you, thanks to Katie, you guys have done an excellent job of financial.
I can tell you, part of what's helped us is administration has done a better job, I think, in forecasting revenue. And that was my concern when we get to the end of the year and have a much bigger surplus than we anticipated, which meant that we made decisions 12 months earlier that negatively affected people when we should have known we had the money coming in. I got to be very careful that, and this isn't to you, this is to the group. If I am being told that may very well have some problems, I make decisions today that complicate that, that's pretty irresponsible of me. Yeah.
Yes, John, you want to say something?
Just real quickly. Look, I had an emergency plan in place in case the jail millage failed. Fortunately, I didn't have to go to battle with Judge Thompson over that because that resolved itself. In 2 years, I don't know if Thompson's retiring or if he's going to run again in 2 years, but chances are I may very well be chief judge in 2 years. I still have my original, and Katie, you and I have discussed what my battle plan was. Some of the other commissioners have heard it. Some of the department heads and elected officials may have to cut themselves till it hurts to get through an emergency. I've already got a plan in place if it needs to go into place in 2 years. So Kim's going to be retired by then. So I figured I better come up and let you know that I'm around for 6 more years. So I'm always, as some of you know, having been undersheriff, I've been dealing with this Headley nonsense for a long time. I've been, even when Vance and I were in office, we were making budget cuts. You remember the whole Y2K fiasco. We were giving up our grant dollars to make sure the county was covered. Keep that in the back of your mind, that's where my mindset is. And that comes from being the son of a former county board chair, so.
Well, the great news for us today is that we're already thinking about 2 years from now. And I'll guarantee you, a lot of commissions never did. So we have an opportunity. We don't have to react to anything. We can start planning some things. I'd like to know what you know. Apparently, you've got some ideas. So yeah, we can work through it. We've been taking baby steps to get the voter to give us relief from Headley. To renew our operating budget was huge. But will they support the next request? I can't gamble on that.
No, I get that. I get that.
But I think there's other opportunities that we need to discuss. Good news is we got a year or so to look at those things.
But just keep in the back of your mind that the hamster is running the wheel in my head, so I am thinking about the financial part.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
So in our system, I can run a financial forecast, and being conservative by 27, 28 fiscal year, that's then when the fund balance begins to drop off based on the financial forecast. So, my timing is a year ahead because that's a comfort level and a conservative approach. Do I think that these certain positions should completely suffer? No. Do I think the county should put itself in a bind? No. But I don't think it should just be swept under the rug.
Kind of increase does your system account for revenue increase?
So based on the numbers for the last 10 years that Brianne was able to provide me, with the rollback and what everything looks like, as a conservative, I did a 3% increase in revenue, but for the last 10 years, it's averaged closer to 4.5 to 5. So I'm looking at a 3% though, being ultra conservative. So when the world crashes, yeah. So this forecast is probably maybe a bit bleak compared to reality, but from a conservative standpoint and funding, I think that's probably
Better to lean that way.
So as I look at the information you provided us, I think what we need to do is focus on 4 positions. You got the county clerk, you got the sheriff, the undersheriff, and the magistrate.
Did you consider the appointed officials sheet as well?
No, I'm just looking at this one.
Okay.
I do remember conversations when these sheets first came out. I think we have to consider central dispatch director. I think there was conversation about equalization director to the degree that levels of licensure.
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Did not warrant perhaps the median
Correct.
at this time. So to me, that one could be removed from consideration.
Yeah. If you look at that position and look at the counties as all the counties, as a whole, those holding the position in other counties are 15, 20 plus year employees.
Right.
And some of them have a level 4 licensure, whereas our person being very young in their career only has a level 3. So to pop that person to the median right off the bat, you're not comparing you're comparing an egg to an apple.
And then don't I also remember EMS director that there was something that skewed that number as well, or
Mhm.
made it not as
It's hard to
There-
compare because there's not that many
There's
comparisons.
2,
right.
us and one other person.
Right.
And the other
So-
county
Yeah.
is,
Okay.
Yeah, so you almost can't compare because there's us and Misaki. everyone else is not a municipal entity.
Yep.
And so how do you run an average of 2? I mean, you can, but
And then let's hop down to, no, all the other ones are above median. Yeah, so I think as we leave that page, it's, Corey's position, that is the only, I'm sorry, central dispatch director. The one that,
Wait. You've got two of them. You got central dispatch and you got equalization.
no, took equalization off because of licensure and time spent in that position.
Right, I'm just
Right,
I'm just
so
looking at
that's
disparity.
why I removed that one.
So the only one that I see us looking at then would be central dispatch.
Correct.
In addition to the ones that I cited.
Correct.
We also have an opportunity for an animal control director.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, because that's gonna be a new position and we don't know exactly the level of experience we're gonna get upon hiring. I think we leave that where it's at. I don't think that needs adjusting at this time, but I defer to Katie if you feel differently.
yeah, so when you originally filled that position, you and Mitch Deich, you filled an officer position. And then Mitch later on added on director and added on administrative duties. And Jackie and I believe that really isn't the right direction that should have went. And so we're advertising for an officer position, and those administrative duties, I mean, we've already been picking up the slack on those for quite some time. So we're looking at putting that position on that ACT scale after doing the questionnaire. So that would no longer be a department head position.
I was getting at.
So what kind of reduction would we be looking at in salary? Because that tells
We-
us a
we
little
haven't-
pool that we can play with, when we're.
We haven't
giving-
done the questionnaire, but I will say the salary that you have it at is very low. And so 52,000 for a director position. That's pretty low in the grand scheme of directors.
Is animal control a director?
That's what Mitch, yeah. That's what Kyle was.
Be looking at reclassifying.
Correct, to an officer position.
He's asking,
That's what I'm asking. What kind of change would that reflect?
We haven't done the questionnaire yet, so I don't even want to speculate until we go through the questionnaire.
still not that much money,
Yeah.
52 even for. I don't think it'd make that much difference.
Positions that were identified. Be in
Are you saying move them to average?
Meaning,
What if we could just make an adjustment for sheriff and under sheriff and not bump all the way to, could we do it incrementally? And as we see how the year goes?
It really
And
is
look at
your
it.
call. It's this board's call and to have it, if you want to do it incrementally, if you want to do a bump, you want to do, it's up to this board on how you,
I think
do
the
that.
sheriff and the undersheriff. An increment.
They always
been
seem to
too
get,
long.
they always are
Yeah.
the ones that seem to always get pushed, right? Like, oh, well, let's make them, wait.
Yeah,
Well,
that
they
one
always
was
seem to
really-
do that.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go to median and make median what we wanna do, then we should do it.
so if you just looked at those two positions, you're moving into median, that's $14,000 additional plus taxes and matching benefits, et cetera, just for those two positions.
that's $20,000.
Okay,
You earmarked 50 for everything.
so that'd be 20.
That was last year. Mhm.
Magistrate
Up
with
to
10
11.
more.
Well,
And we didn't
but
even
the
come close to the 100.
oh, I see, yeah, because you take it to 69,
Mhm.
okay,
There's 30.
30 plus. Because you getting considered.
Clerk is
taxes.
2 or 1.5.
It's 2.
So what are you guys over there noodling?
We're pretending like we know what we're doing. So it would be
We're babbling quietly.
I was thinking-
Here.
26,000 plus benefits. What percentage are you adding for benefits? 30, 40%?
Well, your health benefits isn't gonna change. It's just your FICA and all those sorts of things. So you're
But
looking.
retirement
Mhm.
changes. What number did you use to get from 14 to 20? What percentage?
I just used a flat dollar amount.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Just
let's
made
just
yeah.
do
pretty much.
something similar and we would say that, let's just call it 20. So this total move, if we moved everybody, rough numbers, it cost us 46,000. And you said that we had $50,000 in contingency.
So is that the clerk, the sheriff, the undersheriff, the magistrate, and the dispatch director? Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, I forgot to dispatch.
had that one.
Nope, that wasn't part of the 46. So whatever, what? The dispatch would be at another
Okay.
two. So it puts you just about at 50. I want to go back to something Gary was commenting on surplus. Where are we at? We had about 28% surplus.
So the audit has not come back. And so you'll recall at the conclusion of the last audit, it looked like we had this tremendous fund balance of like 40-some%.
Oh,
And that was because of the ARPA dollars that we then recognized and then put into the 401. We did that, bringing it down to 25% as your policy states. The audit has not come back yet, so I can't give you an accurate number because, you know, that's just one snapshot in history. If I had to speculate, I don't even want to speculate, honestly. The general fund looked really good at the end of the audit after Kelly and I went through and balanced everything. You know, and that's usually what we focus on. The other funds didn't look terrible. There was a couple funds that were horribly tight. So I don't even want to speculate, but I think it's probably still around 25 to 26% at least.
do you think 2 years from now, we're going to have to use surplus to balance the budget?
Potentially, but in 3 years, yes.
At 3 years for sure,
Hmm.
based on where we're currently at.
Yes. But 25% is a hefty fund balance when GASB tells you need 14 to 17%. So we're setting a high number for fund balance, which isn't horrible. I mean, we're being smart with our money. So keep that in mind too, is, you know, we are being ultra conservative in our savings.
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
I was just wondering about our MERS. Our different divisions are set up differently in MERS, right? We have different multipliers and then there's different. Is it the same number of years, the highest earning years, which are put into the equation for the ultimate payout that's paid out forever?
You're talking about FAC, right?
Yeah.
So final average compensation, I think they're all 5, aren't they?
3 or 5.
I think they're all 5. Is
All
that-
5?
Yeah, they're all
Okay.
FAC
So
5.
big jumps like this, you know, regardless of where they're made, impact that payout as well. I mean, we have
Correct.
to.
It does. And so if they stay plus 5 years, then it dramatically impacts that. Whereas, you know, they leave in a year, the impact is much smaller because it's an FAC of 5. So they take the last 5 years of your employment to create the average. So say you
But
give a
the
huge bump and they
after the
leave
last-
in a year,
Okay. Okay.
that's one high year of the previous, you know, plus the 4 previous smaller years, and they
Right.
average those 5.
Okay, but if that person stays and that wage is your prevailing, is your last 5 years, then the payout is.
Yeah,
significantly
so
higher.
whatever, yep. So
Gotcha.
when you leave that
Yep.
preceding 5.
Because that pay could have only been for 2 years,
Right.
for the 5. And everybody we're talking about is on a defined benefit, right?
No.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so that wouldn't apply.
Yeah, the dispatch director is not on a defined benefit, and we don't know what the magistrate, we don't know.
So somebody mentioned about maybe doing this in steps. That's my expression, not theirs. Who said that?
I think increments, but yeah.
Increments? Who said that? You did? I think there's some merit, so we could take some action today, but 6 months from now, well, recommending it, okay? And maybe like 6 months from now, maybe we'll have some better ideas about revenue enhancement. Or maybe the picture looks different, but instead of taking that full step today, take it in increments, to use your expression.
I think it was, I proposed it as an option. I don't think it was well supported. That's not what I heard.
A couple of them.
I guess what I'm saying is I think that's worth considering.
Half now and half in 6 months. What are you talking?
Well, there'd be no guarantee in 6 months, but what it would do is it'd make some progress instead of just kicking that can down the road. but it wouldn't fully obligate us. And we would use that period of time to see, is the picture starting to change? Maybe,
The
yes.
challenge I would have with that,
Say again,
so the challenge I would have with that
sure.
is that we've been striving to do all the employees during this process. To the median. Now we're down at the end, we have just a small handful. We're saying, well, you guys are special, we're not gonna do it for you, we're gonna do something different.
Okay,
That's my change.
A lot of them were retroactive, if I remember. Think back a ways.
No,
Jackie's
Jackie's saying no.
They weren't? I thought they went back about.
No, we didn't
2-3
retro.
weeks or a
It was
day.
the following
Oh,
pay
okay,
period
alright.
typically, or the following month, or
I mean, I understand where he's going with this part, but I mean. To me, it's kind of. You don't wanna punish just because it's the last group that we're doing, well, we're gonna punish you guys because. Well, you're our last group and there might be an oops in our thought process.
okay, so you'd feel more comfortable potentially being irresponsible by giving them everything that we want to give them.
That logic though was saying we were irresponsible from the day one when we started this process.
Say that again?
Your logic is saying that we were irresponsible on day one when we started this process with the wage adjustments for all employees.
Well, I'm not taking that responsibility because I guess I don't remember saying that 2 or 3 years from now, we could be in trouble.
I've
Well,
said
we've
that
been
every
saying,
time.
since I've been on this board for 10 years, it's been doom and gloom every year, right?
Right.
We're gonna run out of money next year. We're gonna run out of money next year. And every year we seem to add to the fund balance for the last 10 years that I've been here. It's always been doom and gloom and we can't pay the employees. We're gonna run out of money, but we haven't. And we've been doing better.
We were gonna be done big time there.
Yeah, so
Yeah, we should. have
I'd like
done
to see it.
next year.
At least these made to where everybody else is, to the median, and we keep moving forward like we have been.
Well, if we're gonna suggest that, and I hear what you're saying about, we seem to do better at the year end than what we think we're going to do. Then I think we need to come back and revisit what we require for surplus. Because that's part of what pushes it. We're trying to stay at 25%. By the way, the auditors, they think you're doing good at 15.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, how often have we fallen below 15?
Can't recall that we ever fell below.
I was saying.
20, 25.
Right.
Yeah, you guys have been a very conservative in your approach to fund balance for a long time.
And being conservative has roadblocked wages and other expenditures.
Yes, sir. I believe it has.
We did get an income from it when the interest rates went up, but
Oh, that's
I
true.
don't see that
Yeah, Michigan
happening a
class.
whole lot longer either.
Yeah, don't guess on interest rates.
Oh. Otter's already dropping them, so.
Get what you're saying.
Feds are coming in.
I'm looking for a compromise is what I'm looking for.
I just really struggle with, we started this process. Our goal was to get everybody, try to get them at the median, and, you know, there's some circumstances understandable, like they don't have a licensure level or whatever. But now we have this last group. Well, we may have miscalculated down before, so this last group's gonna get punished. I really struggle.
As do I.
I feel kind of cornered by the state with the adjustment we made in the prosecutor's office because of what they did with the public defender, because that money could have been divvied up more equitably. And now I look at where it's at, where it falls with the median, and that's a little frustrating.
Extremely well, didn't it? Don't know if you guys remember what I said. Anyway, we'll let it go. We can't do
Let me
anything.
give him his moment.
We can't do anything really till their next official meeting, correct?
Correct.
In January,
Mhm.
which would be,
The 14th, as long as you keep Tuesdays.
that would be in the organizational meeting and.
Organizational meeting.
Right, we never have. We still got time, I guess, is how I'm looking at it, but I would prefer to do this. Like Mr. Markey says, just get it before we do it all.
What new information do we need to make a decision? What's gonna happen
We
between?
can't
now-
make a decision here.
Yes, we can. We
Well, you
can make a
can make a
decision to move it.
recommendation.
So, quit correcting me on that, guys. We are making decisions here. They're just not official, okay?
Right.
But what's gonna change between now and the next meeting that'll say, oh yeah, it really makes it clear to me how I ought to vote?
Already know.
Not
how-
changing for me.
So. Yeah, I don't think anything's gonna change.
Well, I'll make a motion that we move the,
Can I, do
oh,
you want me to
I was gonna
actually?
move it to the, move it on to the next. We can't, what?
You need to tell me what you're moving on, though.
Well, I wasn't done yet.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that's.
Those,
clear.
the designated, was it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4? The designated 5 positions, move them to the median wage. Bring that to the next board meeting, or however we have been verbalizing that. That would be the sheriff, under sheriff, magistrate, county clerk, and central dispatch director.
Yeah, I'm gonna support that for discussion. Are we willing then? What I'm trying to avoid is, what does the second and third year look like? I'm really concerned about that. One of the ways that we can soften it is if we're willing to reduce the amount we require in surplus. Because worst case scenario is in that third year, we can draw down surplus further to support the budget while we're still trying to figure it out.
I would be in favor of that. And is that something we do with the board rules?
Yeah, you have
That's
a
what we're-
resolution
yeah.
in place. You have a resolution
Have to
regarding
change
fund
that
balance.
resolution.
You'll just have to change that resolution as to what the percentages and what the uses are. Because your resolution goes so far to say that, yes, it's 25%, and that if you pull any fund balance, it can only be used on X, Y, and Z. So you'd have to rework your whole resolution.
And the reason why I'm going down this road is I want to know that there's a plan B. And so Katie, I want to turn to you. You're the paid professional here. Does that make you uncomfortable with using that as a potential safety net if we get into the third or fourth year and find out, well, we need to start drawing down that surplus because we still need to take Headley to the public yet?
It makes me uncomfortable because unless you commit to 1 year, it's a runaway train.
Say that one more time.
So it would make me uncomfortable because, I mean, you shouldn't rely on your fund balance to support operations. But if that's the direction you're saying you'd like to go, I mean, that's a 1 year commitment that I'm comfortable making. But I don't want to do that more than a year because that's just you're headed down the dark hole of naughtiness, badness at that point.
And so I'm looking at it as a safety net because the county's operating budget or millage is going to come up in 26.
Correct.
All right. Let's say the environment is not conducive to us asking for an increase at all, because there may be people that are just waiting for us to do that anyway. So we said, okay, we're going to have to kick that down the road a couple of more years. That would now have stretched it out to 4 years, and we can do a lot better job educating people in that time. Because I really believe some of these failures of millages is lack of communication. So all I'm looking for is the safety net. I know it's not the all to end all, but we might say to you, okay, we're carrying a 24% fund balance, and you say, yep, but I need X amount of that, and now we're gonna end the new budget year at 17%, because guys, I need that money to balance it. Does that go against your principles?
It makes me very uncomfortable because that's a huge percentage.
And maybe I'm using the wrong percentages, but you know where I'm going with this, I think.
It makes it, there's a level of uncomfortableness. But in a pinch for a fiscal year, I can get over that real easy. But the fact that we don't have an end point to that is very uncomfortable.
So we've been pretty consistent with 3% raises. I know we're obligated by contract, many of the contracts for several years out. Kim talked about years when those weren't given. I mean, is it fair to say, look, we're doing these bumps, but that's gonna mean we gotta slow this train down. And now that these numbers are getting big, 3% is big on a big salary, you know? And a lot of these are headed that direction. Do we look at something different? That's more across the board instead of percentage, where the person at the bottom of the scale is rewarded the same way the person at the top is, and it's not this person gets a windfall and this person gets a little nudge. I mean, I just think maybe we need to look at that differently as well, moving forward. Percentage raises deepen a chasm between the highest paid and the lowest paid. And there's a different way to approach it and look at it that could do a good thing for the employees, but not, but be a cost savings too. So I just offer that as well.
I mean, yes, the people who've settled their contracts, I think you're hard pressed to change what's in place.
Sure, I mean, I.
So you're only looking at that small group of non-union folks. You know, I like flat amounts. That's why I proposed it a year ago, is because I do like flat amounts because it benefits everybody equally. And that is a way to look at it, but it's really a small number of staff. I don't think you're gonna have the impact that you hope is all.
If you do flat amounts, percentage differences between the
They get
deputy
close.
clerk versus the chief deputy clerk versus the clerk is gonna get smaller.
Mhm.
Yes.
But in the past, gonna throw this out, past, they targeted unelected, non-union.
Oh,
And that has been,
Yeah.
Cindy worked here. Yeah. It would fight for a nickel if you could get it. I'm just saying, we don't want to go down that path either.
Mm-mm.
And I'm gonna go back to my original comment. If we're willing to, as a consensus right now, say, yes, we will address lowering the target on our fund for the purpose of Plan B. I know, but I don't know how responsible that is either, other than I don't think that historically, we've not had to get into anything that would put us less than 15%, I'll bet.
I want to nowhere near 15%.
I don't think
we
we've
want to be
been
there.
below 20.
Well,
No.
but I'm saying that it'd be a recognition right now that we're gonna use some of the surplus, and we aren't gonna do it by violating our own policies. I don't know what the right number is. I'm just throwing them out there, guys.
I don't think it'd be a cent or two at the most that or cover.
I don't know what a percent or two amounts to, how many dollars.
Audit only is a snapshot, so you don't really know what you have for the whole year.
You can do an averaging, but yeah, you're right.
Hear what he said?
Right.
It's being recorded, Gary.
Yeah, right. No, I'm in trouble.
He is, I can think of a couple.
So 20% of 2.3 million, which is what I think the fund balance is probably about at, is $460,000.
Okay, moving from 25 to 20%.
But that's me guesstimating. I think the fund balance is probably going to come in around the $2.3 million.
We have a motion on the table.
Go for the vote.
What's the
Can you
motion?
remind me what the motion was?
Yeah, Tammy, can you
The
repeat
motion was
that?
to move the sheriff, undersheriff, county clerk, magistrate, and communications director to the medium wage,
Recommending.
recommending to
To
the
the
board of
full board.
commissioners.
Or to the,
And when are we going to be discussing this again? At the
14th.
organizational meeting?
January 14th.
probably the 14th, if we stay with our schedule.
Yeah, if you keep it Tuesdays, it's the 14th.
Well, the first non-special meeting in January.
First regular schedule
Yep.
meeting.
Don't want to change it because I get too screwed up now.
You've got it in your paper calendar,
I
Brenda.
already got it written down.
Easy.
And I already talked to Christy a little bit about it too, and she says Tuesdays actually are the best day for her too, so. I don't, unless you guys have major schedule changes.
Um. I guess we should vote on this.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll make that recommendation to the board. So are we done with the topic?
Yeah.
I think so.
So.
So too. We are on our last public comment. Would anybody like to come up and make public comment?
Kim Nowak, 85th District Court and the probate court. I just want to make, from your recent motion to go before the board as a whole, I appreciate it. It did include mine. I understand that. It did include the magistrate, but again, I just want to reiterate how important it is that, our court is different. It's two courts in one that we have been doing. And so, yes, I just want to thank you, but even though I wasn't included, I understand, and I hope that you will revisit that again shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm addressing this one to Tammy, but what's our battle plan for swearing in?
What's what?
What's our battle plan for getting the county board sworn in?
Judge Thompson will be swearing him in on the 17th,
Okay,
next week.
of this, okay.
Yeah.
They should probably have him swear me in too.
3:00.
3 o'clock.
Okay,
That's real.
3:00. Yeah.
very good.
That's a problem that we have a meeting on the 14th and we're not getting sworn in until the 17th.
No, we're at the 17th.
December.
Next week.
All right, next week.
Look in your calendar, your paper calendars.
This is still this book though.
No, our new ones have
I'm
December.
proud of them new books. You should have been.
You done with public input?
We are done with, yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Let's get out.